by B, we have to do 2 spheres, right? And 1 cone, right? And we're trying to compare and see if those 2 scoops, if it's going to be equal to that 1 cone when it's melting, right? And what do we know about the diameter of our cone? The diameter of our cone, so right, we got this double scoop up here. The diameter, they tell us, is equal to 4 inches, which means we want radius, right? Radius is 2 inches. So we are going to do 2 times, and we're going to use that sphere formula. So everyone together, the sphere formula is 4 thirds times pi times radius cubed. So we are taking 2 times 4 thirds, you're going to use your calculator, times pi, and 2 to the 3rd power. Okay? With our cone, the other piece of information is that it has a height of 6 inches. And so we are using, again, our formula, which is going to be, if you wanted to start, most of you start with 1/3, or do you divide by 3? Divide by 3. So we're going to go with pi times radius squared times height, all divided by 3. Again, you want to put the formulas. Pi times 2 squared times 6 is our height, divided by 3. Okay? So I need to know what those 2 numbers were. Looking at what those 25.13. I did 25.13 what? Inches cubed. Okay? Pi, 2 squared times 6 divided by 3, 25.13 inches cubed. I don't care if you do it that way or if you do it this way, but you got to make sure you have labels. Some of you are still forgetting that. And our cone. How big? What'd you get? How much did we have in our cone? Andrew, what'd you have? What'd you have?
33.51 inches cubed.
Okay, wait. Was that 1? We got 2 scoops.
Oh.
So you had 2 times. I agree with that number. That's the 33 point something, right? But that's not our answer. What did you get? 67, right? So if we are looking at that, we are looking at 67, we could say inches cubed. It's definitely overflowing, right? So you're going to see a question kind of like one of these 2 from this page on your test that asks you to apply. I'm going to talk about right now, if you turn in your notes, I'm going to talk about exactly what is on the test, okay? So if you turn to that next page in your notes, that's what's on the test. So when are we taking the test? We are taking the test. That's this week. We are taking our test next week, Wednesday. Okay? So if you want to put down 9/20 as test day. 9/20 is your test day. So Wednesday, September 20th. Anyone's birthday? Just checking. All right. The number of questions that we are going to have. Some of them have many parts to them. Okay, so it's not that I'm trying to say, oh, you don't have this many questions, but total together. The calculator, non-calculator, there's 17 questions. Okay, that's on the non-calculator. And then there are 4 on the calculator part. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hand out, I'm going to be handing out your tests, and I'll kind of talk about how many points as we go through here, and then we'll go over it, okay? So it's going to ask you to, what are our standards? And if you look at the poster that I have up here for this whole unit, this yellow one, these are pretty much our standards. I can evaluate approximate square roots. Okay, that's going to be on the non-calculator part. I can classify the types of numbers. That's going to be on the non-calculator part. And then the only thing that's on the calculator part is what we've been doing the last week, which is our volume. Okay? So when I look at this, so classifying, let's just put classify types of numbers, right? I'm not going to actually put the standard for you. I believe it's NS1, but classify types of numbers. So that's kind of what our main standard is, that you can classify, and we're really talking about the rational and irrational, right? I am going to give you a word bank, okay? So I'm going to give you a word bank, and I'm going to ask you to describe in words. Word bank. I'm going to ask you to write a sentence and tell me what's rational and what's irrational. But I'll give you a word bank, okay? And from that word bank, I'll say you should probably use almost all of these words in either one or the other, right? So then you're going to describe, oh, a rational number is, in a sentence. And you're going to tell me what an irrational number is. So if you don't know those, go back to our notes when we did that, like lesson 4 or 5, and think about all the things that we said makes it rational or irrational. So that is going to be 2 questions. Each one is worth 4 points each. Okay? So right now we're at a total of 8 points, right? The next thing under classifying types of number, I'm going to give you a list of numbers, okay? So I'll just give you a list, and I'll say, tell me, is it rational R or irrational I? So I'll give you a big list. There's like 10 in there. That's 1 question. It's going to be worth 5 points. But I'm going to give you like a list of 10 numbers, okay? And to me, it's kind of like thinking of that one with the decimals, you know, that joke one that we did. Only thing, it's not going to be just decimals. There might be some square roots. Like I might give you square root of 10, which would be irrational. But I give you square root of 25, which would be rational, right? So I'm going to give you a whole list of like 10 numbers, and you're going to classify. Okay, so you're up to 13 points on that first page, right? Kind of that first part of the test that we're looking at. What else do you have to do with classifying? You have to complete the statement. So I'm going to give you one other type of question. It'll say complete the statement. So it'll say something like, oh, a rational number is, and then I'm going to give you a spot, and you'll complete the statement. Okay? Lunch? What's on the test? So you got to complete some sentences for me, and you're going to say, it'll say something like, a rational number is, and you'll give an example, and there's 1 question, there's 1 for rational and 1 for irrational, and that is 4 points. Will you please put that down and put it away, that water bottle or whatever you're doing? Put it on the floor, please. Thank you.
This is do we have to fill this?
So this is what you want to put down. No, you can just write it all, and it might go down like this might be like in the first 2 things going across. So the first type of the test, this is the first what's on the test. You're going to be completing these. And then you do have to do, so up to this point, we got another 4 points, right? We're up to 17. I think that's like the first page of the non-calculator test, okay? Then, the next standard is that I can evaluate and approximate. And when we look over there, evaluate and approximate square roots, okay? So evaluate and approximate. There's only going to be 1 approximating square roots, okay? But when you evaluate, you have to do the square roots, you have to do cube roots, you have to do x like a number squared, like no 7 squared, and you have to do cubes, okay? So, thus that memorized list. And if you still haven't memorized your cubes or your squares, you need to do those.
Wait, what was the last one you put on there?
So like 7 squared, or like you might need to know 7 cubed, or any of the cubes. So when you think of the 1 to 20, those perfect squares, you're going to be asked just in a question. So it might say, oh, what's the square root of 144, right? And then you tell me 12. Or I'd say, what's the negative cube root of 64? And you tell me negative 4. So you have to know those squares and the 10 cubes. And again, if you haven't practiced those, I think this comes out for, so there's one approximate one, and it's worth 4 points. And then there's like 12 of these. And I think, I want to say they're like 1 or 2 points each. Let me look here. I was just making up my answer key. They are 2 points each, and there's 12 of them. So that's another 24 points, right? So as we are looking at that, oh, this one is 5 points. I was off. That's 5 points, and these are each 2 points each. So I got 24, right? So on that side of the test, the first half, we had 17. This is the back page of that first day. We have 29 points. And then you will finish that part of the test on Wednesday, and then you'll go to what's called the calculator part. And the calculator part is just all going to be volume, right? So the last part of the test that I'm going to be looking at, it is I can find the volume, and we are looking at the volume of a cylinder and a cone and a sphere. So those 3 formulas, one of them is pretty straightforward. So one of them I just say, oh, here is a cone, cylinder, or sphere. Here's the radius, or here's the diameter, and here's the height. And so I might give you a picture and say, oh, as I look at this cone, I have these 3 different dimensions. I have this side being 20, I have this like 20 feet, I have this side being 18 feet, and I have the radius down here being 6 feet. And I might say, what's the volume? And I am going to be looking for, yes, that you put the formula, the numbers, your answer, and a label. So there's one question where I just give you, and it's worth 4 points, where I just give you a cylinder or a cone or a sphere, kind of like how I did here, and I just say find the volume. Okay, pretty straightforward. Actually, let's say there's 2 like that. So I'll give you this, or I might say, you know, the diameter is 10 inches. What is the volume of the sphere? Right, something like that. So pretty straightforward. So that's 8 points. And then there's going to be 2 that you have to apply, like those volumes. So it might be like that density problem of the ball, right? So where I said, oh, you got this ball, can you lift it, right? And so you had to first find, so then there's going to be 2 apply questions is how I would write those. 2 apply questions on the test, okay? And my hint to you is as you do 12, 11B, 12 today, and on next week 13. So 2 apply questions. I would say this is like the ice cream cone that we just went through, right? This is like all those story problems. This is like the, can you lift the density of the ball, right? We did that question the other day on your worksheet. I think it was like 13. The density of the steel ball, okay? So all of those types of questions, anything, and there's other ones, all those story problems, that's kind of what I mean by the apply questions, okay? So there will be 2 of those, and each one is worth 4 points. 2 problems, 4 points each. So we got another 16 points. Someone total it for us. What do we have? 16, 29, and 17. Total of how many points for us? The top where I asked you. We have 16, 29, and what did they say on the last page? 17. We had the first page. Okay. So making sure, as you are looking at these, that you kind of know all these different areas. Okay, This is going to be key to you being prepared for the test. Test is until Wednesday. That means this weekend you have a chance to look at some of this, you go over some of it. I just don't understand rational and irrational. You can come in and practice with these sets of numbers when we did this, right? Because by sorting these, you might get better at defining what it is for all those different categories, right? So, what's that? What did we get for total? How many points? 62? That sound right? So 62 points. So, yesterday we started talking about this one. This example that they give, they use a radius of 5 feet. Do you think I can use radius of 5 feet in any of the rest of these? They gave you that one right here, right? When they plugged in 5 for the radius, they got 523.6 whatever. They rounded it to 2 decimal places. And then, this is like the kind of like applied problem I'm talking about, where I might say, only thing I give you like the radius and say, well, how much does it cost, right? And so once you found this volume, so you need to, someone said, I don't get how to do this. I'm not sure I understand. Well, on your calculator, you're going to take 4/3 times pi and put in a number, right? And the first time you put in, let's go with something less than 25. Someone give me a number. 14. You plug in 14 and you cube it, you take it times pi and 4/3. If that gives you a number between 500 volume and 2,500, you get to use that number, right? If when you plugged in 14, it was way too big, and you know you have to go smaller, right? All of these have to be whole numbers. You're going to put a number here that's a whole number. No decimals, no fractions, right? Whole number. And then you're going to figure the cost. Okay? Turn to the next page, which is the cones. This one says, just making the solid bright cone. To use at the playground, he needs it to be between 1,000 and 2,000. It gets a little more restrictive, right? That last one went from 500 to 2,500. This time, the final volume has to be between 1,000 and 2,000 cubic inches. Oh, can I only use whole numbers? For your diameter. Provide the diameter and the height. Now, cone formula is what? Volume is equal to? Pi times radius. I thought I heard a cube, but it is not. Radius squared height divided by 3. Or if you wanted to use 1/3, right? Now, this asks for the diameter. Your formula, when you plug in the number here, so you have to come up with a diameter and a height of 3 different cones. That means when you plug this in, and you're putting pi, you're squaring something and taking it times, this has to come out to be between 1,000 to 2,000. And you can work with your, like your partners, by your shoulder partners, or if you're working today on this, you're going to have to play with your calculators. You're going to put numbers in. But just remember that when you put this number in, this is the radius, and this asks for the diameter. So make sure whatever number you plug in for the radius, you're doubling that to get your diameter, right? Okay? You're just going to kind of play with some numbers, and you're going to work with each other as you do that, but start with your formulas. And then back here, you still need radius and height on that next page, okay? But it's a little more restricted, only from 110 to 115. And once you start figuring out some of them, you're like, it's going to be like, wow, that makes so much sense. I can use this number, and then, so you hopefully will start seeing some patterns, okay?